So guys, I made a video probably about 10 months ago talking about how college football was completely broken, and since that time period here with the transfer portal open, it's only gotten worse. I remember seeing an article about a month ago saying this was going to be the craziest transfer portal, we've seen, way crazier than last year, and we've got ridiculous numbers. 734 total FBS players entered Monday and Tuesday. And guys, when it comes to whatever this is, you hear a common phrase from people with the NIL recruiting, with the portal. It's the wild, wild west. Any rules that the NCAA has, they're not being enforced. They have absolutely no power over any of these bigger SEC programs that are just trouncing over everything with tampering. And some of the stuff is so crazy. We're seeing programs reach out to players on, other teams in other conferences saying, we're going to give you money to come here. Totally illegal, not enforced at all. And this stuff is all enabled because these programs know they can completely get away with it. And that's not even bringing up the problem with the NIL in terms of the recruiting, which is obviously being exploited by many schools. We saw that last year, and it's just going to keep happening. Any way these teams can gain an advantage, if one school does it, another school does it, another school does it, you're not going to bull ban and punish everyone. And that is why we are seeing an absolute cluster. And guys, the portal has gotten so bad. Kids will enter it, and I think several Texas A&M players did it where they're not even transferring. They just want more money from their university boosters, so they will enter the portal to gain leverage and say, listen, I'm being offered this from Alabama, I'm being offered this from Miami, you need to match it, you need to up your price, what you're paying me. And this is just not how college football should be run at all. Something as big, an entity as big as college football with no rules and no leadership structure at all. There's no board, there's no enforcement when it comes to NIL. You bring NIL in, and unfortunately, you've got so many of these kids, we see it, the overall numbers, like 38 to 40% of these kids that are entering the portal don't even find a new home. So the numbers are staggering. And again, guys, this comes down to there being absolutely no enforcement of any type of rules. You can do whatever you want. It kind of reminds me of situations in some of these bigger cities where, these people are allowed to steal a certain amount of stuff. They're just going to keep doing it. They don't get caught. There's no enforcement of it. They will, unfortunately, keep doing the same exact thing. And again, that's not even mentioning the problem with recruiting. So we're back to the same situation we were last year when it comes to the transfer portal, when it comes to NIL, a total mess that the NCAA has no control over. And again, this is not how college football should be run at all. We have some programs abiding by the rules, other programs not abiding by the rules. I don't want to single anyone out, but we've seen what's going on at, Texas A&M, Miami, places like that. Obviously, those teams did not have very good years, but it's pretty much all the bigger SEC schools where they're all blatantly cheating, but is it really cheating if you're getting away with it? It's almost like the schools that aren't cheating are going to have to start cheating to adapt to the situation and really keep up with all of the schools that are, in quotation marks, cheating, because is it really cheating if the rules don't even get enforced at that point? So I really don't know what to say. They should have seen this coming from a mile away. There needs to be a specific NIL board that gets set up. Otherwise, this type of stuff is just going to keep happening, and you're going to see these players manipulate the portal. I know there have been calls by some. There's a few different ideas that have been floated out there that I've seen where people basically say, listen, if you enter the portal, you have to leave your school. I don't think that would ever get passed, but it is an interesting idea that would really discourage the idea of some of these kids just leaving to get more money from their own school. by marketing themselves, their NIL thing. A kid from Alabama wants to enter the portal to get an offer from Miami to tell the Alabama boosters, you need to pay me more or I'm leaving. That's how the kids get leverage. And then we've also seen other people say that, I mean, I think this transfer portal window is ridiculous. Why is the window before the supposedly biggest games of the year, which are the bowl games? Now, obviously, it's a total sham. This is why we're forced to go to the 12-team playoff along with, listen, I love the 12-team playoff, and I was happily for it. You take a look, a year and a half ago, I said we need the 12-team playoff immediately because of this situation. And the funny thing is, we thought NIL and the boosters were going to maybe, create a situation where we could keep these kids playing meaningless bowl games, like New Year's Six bowl games that are not part of the playoff. Turns out we've got the NIL, and now we're seeing possibly kids sitting out playoff games because they're worried about their draft stock. So this is a horrible situation right now for college football. This is not good press, seeing half of these rosters enter the transfer portal. This is not how you would never see something like this in the NFL. It's just not an organized format. And unfortunately, the schools that have the most power endorse this type of behavior because it helps them when it comes to roster turnover and clearing out spots and things like that. So there needs to be an organized way to enter the portal. We should not be seeing this crazy stuff that we're seeing. Kids getting courted, kids at schools being offered NIL deals from other schools in different conferences, putting together NIL packages and saying, listen, you're a freshman, you're a sophomore, we know. How about the Jordan Addison situation? I mean, it's just, you don't want to single it out, but it's so ridiculous. Jordan Addison, nobody heard anything, and suddenly, oh, he's going to USC with Lincoln Riley, and are we to assume that there wasn't a major offer from USC? No, there was, and then there's two sides to it. Of course, you have people saying, yes, it's his market, he needs to go get his money, but then there's the other side saying it's just simply not fair to Pittsburgh, right? Like, how are they supposed to compete if they're just getting outbid for a player that they've developed as a low 4-star? I mean, you're seeing it again and again and again, and we're probably going to be seeing it this year with, kids from smaller schools getting sniped by bigger schools that have big boosters and a lot to offer, and it offers very little wiggle room for those smaller schools to really make an impact because they're getting their players poached by the bigger schools and the bigger boosters. And we saw how desperate some of these schools get to put together as much talent as possible. So it is a completely uneven playing field right now. It is totally inorganic, and we've got a crazy number of players entering the portal, a lot of which, unfortunately, I mean, take a look at JT Daniels, for example. This is a kid who was, I think JT Daniels is the perfect example of an NIL, modern-day horror story. And it really doesn't have to do all with NIL. JT Daniels, very highly regarded 5-star recruit, reclassifies a year early, which I tell quarterbacks especially, don't reclassify. It's going to mess up your growth. Take your senior year in high school to develop. Come as a true freshman. Do not reclassify. But they want the money earlier. They want to play earlier, whatever. I get it. He reclassifies. He ends up going to USC. He transfers, after playing sparingly to Georgia. He ends up getting beat out there, Stetson Bennett. Then he transfers again to West Virginia. And now, after a season at West Virginia, apparently he is transferring again. So a very sad story with JT Daniels. We're getting a 5-star quarterback who has, how do you develop? If you're at 4 different places over the span of 5 years, maybe, I don't understand how a young person who has just major development to do, you're getting different QB coaches. It's a horrible, horrible situation in terms of developing as a quarterback prospect. So when it comes to young quarterbacks, you really, really need to be wary of a story like JT Daniels where he reclassifies, which I say you should never do as a quarterback. Don't mess with your development. Other positions, really, I don't recommend reclassifying in any position. I think you should develop as a high school player for 4 years, let your body get ready. But with the quarterback, especially with the brain and processing and getting as many snaps as you can, so when you come in as a true freshman, you really are not behind the 8 ball. Quinn Ewers did the same thing. You know, Ryan Day takes him as a true freshman when he should have been a senior in high school. And Ryan Day is like, this kid's just not ready. I don't know what you want me to do. He plays 2 snaps at Ohio State, and he transfers back home. We'll see what happens with Quinn Ewers. I know, a little bit influx right now. We're not really sure, after next year he can be drafted, but I don't think he's a shoo-in to be like a top 10 pick right now, and he was a perfect 1,000 recruit. So I don't think Caleb Williams reclassified, unless I'm misremembering something. I think Caleb Williams stayed in his class, and you can see there's a lot more development there. Played a little bit in Oklahoma as a true freshman, transfers, and now he's taken off, and now he's probably going to be the #1 overall pick after next year. So, it's so unfortunate to see these kids who really are ignorant be controlled by other people, by agents, things like that. Say, get your money, get as early as you can on campus when really it kills your development. And, guys, I don't know. I think if there's no enforcement, and this is why I said there needs to be, penalties for these universities for blatantly cheating. You have to come down hard on someone so it scares everyone else on. It's like if you've got a raccoon infestation and, you've got like 10 raccoons and, you kill one of them in front of the other 10, they're probably going to get pretty scared. That's what you have to do to these boosters. You've got to significantly, if you're the NCAA, investigate one of these schools and say, no, this has got to stop right now. It's horrible for the sport. It's ruining it. And whether it's the tampering that's going on within other rosters where you have boosters going into other rosters, players that aren't even in the portal saying, come here, whether it's the blatant NIL recruiting, cheating that's going on, where I still think technically the rule is you can't tell a player, listen, I'll give you X amount of money if you come to this school, which is just hilarious because 99% of the casual college football fan base thinks that it's legal, and I totally understand why they think it's legal. We have basically deals being reported that are supposed to be illegal for high school 5-star athletes to go to a certain school. That is how bad it's gotten. It's so sad, guys, and really it's hurting a lot of these kids' development like JT Daniels. So I feel so bad for these kids. They're being taken advantage of, and they're actually being manipulated because now they believe they have power. They are getting money. Listen, I believe in capitalism. I believe the kids should get money, but at a certain point, it actually hurts their development and hurts their draft potential. We take a look at this A&M situation. You have certain kids entering the portal trying to get more money from A&M, but is it even about the money anymore? These are 5-star kids that are not being developed properly. They're all funneled in. There's like 6 top 50 kids. They're not all going to play. They're sitting rotting on a 4-8 or 5-7 football team. This is not an ideal situation for these young athletes. They should be developed properly. They should be able to certainly market themselves, but when you base your decision entirely off of getting an extra $300,000 or whatever it is, rather than future development, you get an A&M situation, and you know what? The A&M stuff can still work out. If I was an A&M fan, I would say I don't regret any of it. You're trying to build the most talented roster possible. It's all understandable. But I'm just looking at it from a player's perspective. If you're like, especially the defensive linemen, they got like 3 5-star defensive linemen in the 2022 class, maybe 5 players inside the top 50. I know a few of them are already in the portal. One of them went into the portal, presumably got more money from A&M after they had already paid him money to commit there in the first place, to take his name out of the portal. So that is the current situation in college football with the transfer portal, with the NIL. It is a record situation with these players entering. We figured it would be, with last year really being the first year, and it's only going to get even bigger and bigger and bigger, and more and more and more and more players will be entering the portal. And it also creates situations that are very unique that we've never seen before in college football history, like the USC rebuild, where they get a bunch of kids from the transfer portal. None of them obviously have to sit out, which is completely foreign and new to college football. And I do agree with I will say this, guys. If you are doing something where you transfer to a school, you know, let's say you commit somewhere, you play your freshman year, you want to transfer, that's fine. You transfer to another school, I think you should get in immediately. There should be no year-long wait like there used to be. I agree with that because we saw what happened with Brian Kelly last year. It was terrible. These coaches take new jobs. You shouldn't screw the kids and have a situation where it's a double standard where the coach is leaving with 5 years remaining on his contract, and the kids that committed to the school for the coach, if they transfer, they have to sit out a year. I agree that should not happen. But I will say, if we have these kids ping-ponging around school to school, you can transfer somewhere and play immediately, but if you transfer again, I mean, listen, unless it's a situation where your head coach left, I would say the kid's got to sit out a year. We can't have these kids yo-yoing around. It's not good there for their development. It is not what college football, it's free agency. That's all it is. It's free agency, and these kids are entering the portal and saying, listen, I'm taking my visit. I mean, look at what OBJ is doing for the Cowboys right now. It's basically the same exact thing. They enter the portal. They're already proven. A lot of them can play. Well, some of them are proven. A lot of them are like high recruits that haven't panned out. But then they like go on these visits. They get courted by NIL boosters, things like that. It's crazy. So I don't know what the solution is. I said last year they need to build an NIL board, maybe a transfer portal board, to really try and combat some of this stuff that's going on with these boosters blatantly, tampering with others' rosters and things like that. It is real sad what's going on. But again, I really don't know, because the main problem is a lot of these higher, a lot of these big name schools that have a lot of power within college football, they support what's going on because it can help them clear out their rosters really quickly. And you put about 10 or 11 kids in the portal and you get 10 or 11 free spots. You can plug and play. You can go into the portal and get a 5-star, things like that. If they support it, it becomes a lot harder to regulate this stuff and really make it cleaner for college football and really to help these kids out. And the kids certainly should get paid, but it's actually hurting a lot of their development when they decide to go to one school over another because they're going to make an extra $200,000, and then they end up in the portal and they become undrafted free agents because they haven't received the proper development. That's a horror story, the JT Daniels horror story. It's sad. But either way, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.